Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventure Show with travel writer Debbie Stone. Hey everybody, this is super excited. We are going on another adventure with the travel writer Debbie Stone, who we call the Fire Monkey. You know, Debbie, you have been, I Fire Monkey. You know how I always lose your files because some of them say FM or Debbie. But welcome back to the show. We're excited because you have been all over the place. And today you're going to be talking about the Grand Tetons, which I know we've touched on before, the Grand Tetons and Yellowstone. And I even have a Yellowstone shirt. But I'm excited about this because you did this in the fall where I think a lot of people only go in the summer. So this is cool to talk about this today. So welcome back. How are you?
I am doing well. And yes, I've been to the Tetons a couple times, and in my story, I mentioned that I've been there at different times, once in winter and then a couple times in summer, but I never been there in autumn. And the fall, to me, I think after being there now in fall is my most favorite time. I think there's just something about the aspens that change and the yellow leaves and the blue sky and these incredible mountains that just seem to rise up from the ground, and to me it was magical. It's a very enchanting landscape anyway, but in fall it was even more so.
Isn't it amazing how stark the mountains appear? Like
yes.
They're when you look out, you're like, whoa, you can't miss that.
Yeah. They're they just tower. They tower, and they rise, as I said, they rise abruptly from the valley, from the Jackson Hole Valley. And to me, when people think about mountains, I think the Tetons at least come to my mind because they're kind of quintessential mountains, and they are beautiful, no matter what season. But for me in the fall, it was just, like I said, an enchanting landscape.
And everyone, the article that Debbie has written about her Grand Teton experience in the fall is up on nationalparktraveling.com. The link is in the show notes. Check that out. But if you're listening right now, as it airs, Debbie is here every fourth Tuesday. So it'll be on the homepage as well as nationalparktraveling.com. But, I love that you do this, and going to the fall season there, looking at your pictures, you have those goldens, Did you ever get that golden color and blue sky at the same time, or is it mostly gray at that time? Because, fall is so interesting with the blues as well as the goldens.
Yes, and it varies. I mean, we had some incredibly beautiful blue sky, gorgeous, and then we had some a day that was gray, and kind of threatening in terms of the clouds. But I found that to be also extremely beautiful, and enjoyed pictures that represented both that type of phenomenon in terms of the weather. And, it's just one of those, it's a national park that, it's a very famous national park. It's a very popular national park. It does get very crowded in the summertime.
Yep.
And so, it's nice to go on shoulder seasons to places like this. Fall, I just found, also though, I found that, from what people have told me and from what I saw, that fall also, is definitely getting a great rep, and there are, quite a few people that have decided, hey, this is a good time to go. You've got sometimes very pleasant temps in the fall, and like I said, the leaf color is another reason why people go. But I enjoy hiking not when it's hot in the middle of the summer, but I enjoy hiking when it's cooler. To me, that's a much more enjoyable experience for me than sweating on the trails.
Yeah. And the wildlife is active in the fall because they're like, oh, we got to stash up for winter. So you see, if you look, you see more wildlife than you might do in the summer, where they're all like, I'm hanging out in the shade and I'm sleeping all day.
That's right. Or they're like, there's too many people out there.
Yeah, they're like, bite me. I'm going over here.
No, fall and spring are really good times, but I also think the fact that you went there in winter too is exciting because winter you do see the wildlife, and
and
it's just this like wow. But Okay, I know it's, Grand Teton National Park is one of the, it's super popular. Like you're saying, it's one of the top visited. There's the Snake River, reading through your article too. It's all in there about how it became a park. But I love the fact that there's an entrance called the Moose Entrance. I want to go to the Moose
I
Entrance.
love moose.
You saw moose. I have
I
still
love
not seen
moose.
a moose in the wild. I don't think
Mm.
I've even, I don't think I've
Oh,
ever seen one. I will cry.
no,
I know I will literally
you
cry.
were a kid. You
Yeah,
were a
but I mean,
kid.
and as an adult, like to note
Yeah.
and remember, I will absolutely
Mm.
lose it. And when we were in Rocky Mountain National Park, we went to
Mm.
the moose place and the moose said, "You're too late."
Yeah.
And
No, it,
sorry, because
mm,
like Nancy was asking you because we know you're going to Patagonia. Nancy, before we
mm,
hit the record button, is telling Debbie, Fire Monkey, go get the
mm.
pangolin photo. And Debbie's like, well, I don't know if they're going to come out for me just because I say it.
Yeah, they
But I feel
did.
that
No, you got
did
to.
you see moose at the moose entrance? I want to
You know,
know.
I saw moose in the park. I'm familiar with
Mm.
moose, having lived in Alaska. I saw quite a few
Yeah.
moose in my day, and
Okay.
I've seen them up close. I've seen them from far.
Oh.
But moose are prevalent in the Grand Tetons, and
Mm,
lots of people will tell you they see moose. And
mm.
you'll see them sometimes when you're just driving around the road. You can also see when the cars stop and people are out of their cars looking at something. You're like, oh,
Oh.
must be an animal. And many times it's a moose. Many times
Mm.
it could be at the park. It could be anything from moose and bear and pronghorn. And I mean, there's
Mhm.
so much. There is so much wildlife. And that is a magnet that draws people to the park. You also see a lot of bison out there as well,
Yeah.
and so, people get very, very excited about it. We've had conversations before about, don't, be smart when you're dealing with
Yeah.
wildlife, and,
No kidding.
don't go up and take the selfie next to the bison and, that kind of
Did
thing.
you think?
And just also go prepared. There's bear spray that people, the rangers will tell you to bring, especially if the bears are really out and about. And
Mm.
there is no you have no idea when you're going to come across a bear. You could be hiking and the bear is walking across the path, or in the woods somewhere. And so
Mm.
understanding and being smart around wildlife is, I think, is essential if you're going to
Key.
be hiking
It's
amid them.
it's key.
Yeah.
It's key. I know. I've been charged twice. Once by a rhinoceros and once
Oh
by
no.
a moose. And no,
Yeah.
and the moose was I was looking out at a pond with a
Yeah.
mother and a baby moose.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah.
but the male came from behind.
Ooh.
It, and I heard the when he stood on a branch and it clicked. I'm like,
Yeah.
boy.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
looked at him like, do you run or do you not?
Mm.
So
You
what I
never
did is
you don't ever run from an animal ever,
no. So I went around the tree that I was standing next to and hugged the other side of it, and he charged, but he went way past me. I'm like, good for you. But
Yeah.
no, and I learned, it's like, okay, so you cannot like there's something about when you're taking the camera with you, you can't
Mhm.
turn off all your other senses.
Yeah. Yeah.
Smell?
You just have to be aware and
Yeah,
just be savvy. It's like when you are walking in an urban environment and
yeah,
in the middle of the big city, and being aware of your surroundings, aware of the
yep.
people, what's going
Hmm.
on. It's like you have to have this sixth sense that you develop not only in an urban
Yes,
environment but in nature.
exactly. And when you
Right.
see somebody that looks a little like, yikes, you cross the street.
Well, actually, it's the same thing that's
Yeah,
happened in
you
Great
do.
Smoky
You
Mountain National Park.
automatically cross the street. So
The
when you're
Great
in the
Smoky
world,
Mountain National Park, they just closed part of the parkway. Not Smoky Mountain, the Blue Ridge Parkway, as people are trying to pick up cubs, bear cubs,
Yeah.
and they
no, but
closed part of the parkway.
that is
And
just
so,
dumb.
and they just killed they had to euthanize a
Oh
I
bear,
yeah.
know.
and,
No,
and, and
it's
they
Yeah.
had to
horrible.
euthanize a bison in Yellowstone, both of them. because of
Yeah.
people's interactions. So what I find really exciting, I know you did all these amazing hikes, right? With water and all,
Mm.
and I think that's really cool. In fall, it's a whole different thing than in summer. But
Yes.
you also went on these wildlife safaris, and I want to
Mm.
talk about the
I
art,
love
and I
it.
want to talk about the history. There's historic sites and cabins, which are, God, those cabins, and it's like cabins and barns are
Mm.
like a thing in the landscape that's amazing. But I want to go to just jump ahead a little bit, because you went on these wildlife safaris, and I think that that might be a good. I think that was through the Four Seasons, right? Jack, you went through when you were staying there, because you stayed in two different places, you went with Jackson Hole Wildlife Safaris, and I think maybe that would be a good starter for people who have not been around wildlife, so that they can get some knowledge and understanding, so that mistakes aren't made. You know what I mean? And so,
Correct.
because I think part of the problem, because people just don't actually, if you don't understand wildlife, you don't understand it, right? But
I
if you
think
go with some guides, or go out on a park ranger, uh, hike or something like
Oh,
that, it may help, right? So tell us about the safaris.
Well, I think you're right on that point. First of all, you're going with somebody who understands the landscape, the environment, understands the history, has great knowledge, and also, of course, understands the wildlife. So not only are you getting somebody who's got all this knowledge, but you're getting somebody who has that
mhm.
experience to be able the eye to see the wildlife and also to explain wildlife behavior to you. And when you go
Absolutely.
with a company like Jackson Hole Wildlife Safaris, you get the opportunity to explore and to learn with a professional guide, a naturalist guide.
Mhm.
And each time you go out on a safari, first of all, you get the special high-powered optics. You'll get binoculars. You'll get a telescope. You'll
Mm.
get anything that you need to see if the wildlife are further away
Mhm.
and difficult to see. And so it's wonderful when you have that opportunity, because that means that you don't have to get up close and personal with a particular animal. You can see them from afar. You can feel safe. You
Wow.
don't have to worry. But you can also then look very close at their behavior and see what they're doing. And
Exactly.
so that's a great option for people. So, sometimes the creatures are right there in front of you, and sometimes,
Mhm.
they're further away. So your guide is great at searching for the wildlife, and it takes work, it takes patience. They have to really scrutinize the landscape. And
Mhm.
sometimes all you might see, as I say, is like a fleeting glimpse of a antler or a fur, but then you then turn the
Mhm.
corner and there's an elk or a bull moose who's chomping away at
Mhm.
some willows,
Wow.
So I think that, like you said, it's a great opportunity for people to not only to see the wildlife, but to learn about the wildlife and the landscape.
Yeah,
And
because I
just
think that everyone with their Instagram things, I think social media has a role, and I'd love to see social media outlets actually do some kind of campaign about don't be a stupid Instagrammer, because that's part
oh,
of the problem. And we've seen it.
Yeah.
We've seen people take their babies up to a baby elk and
oh
a
my
mama elk,
gosh.
and the park
Yeah.
ranger had
No.
to
No,
intervene. We've
it's
seen it.
crazy.
And let's stand on the edge of the Grand Canyon and hope we don't fall down.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
But I think there's this, something has to happen. And please, everyone read Debbie's article about this.
Common
Um,
sense,
because,
you know?
but if you've never been out there, you don't have that common sense,
Oh,
right?
come
So
on.
that's what I'm trying to say. It's like when, when you go out there for the first time,
Mm.
have some steps back, take some steps back on things, because if you're not used to this at home, you're not going to know these animals. Like Nancy and I've
No,
been around
but
them for
uh,
years. You've done it as a hiker too, and all over the world. But if you don't know animals, don't don't go up to them. Just don't do
Right.
it. And
Right.
don't go on the edge of cliffs and think you're not going to fall in, or the edge of a river. You will.
it's common
It's a very
sense.
possible. Yeah, you can say all that, but I'm just saying. You think that, if you've lived in a city in an apartment in downtown New York or Chicago or something. Debbie's from Chicago, so she can yell at me later. Um, you can yell at me now. I don't care. But the reality is, if you've been cityfied and never been out in nature, and that's your first thing, you isn't that could be a kind of
Mm.
a wake-up call. That's why I like this idea of going on a safari where someone starts to explain how these
You
animals
need
work.
somebody. You need a
Yeah,
guide. You
I
do
and
need the
I didn't.
first time you need a guide.
You
You
need a
really
And
guide.
I
do.
think,
I
and I
Because
think,
it's a
and I think,
benefit.
yeah, but I think also, even if it's not your first time, it could be your 50th time.
hmm
I'm a proponent of utilizing guide services because I
Yeah.
think I get an enhanced experience every time I do.
Yeah,
So,
you do. You
whether or
learn
not
way more.
yeah, whether or not you're savvy and you think you know everything, it's like
Yeah,
this is a wonderful opportunity to have also a dialogue with somebody who really lives there, knows the area, knows the landscape,
yep,
knows what's going on. It's a wonderful opportunity to be
absolutely.
able to ask all the questions you want,
Mm.
to get that kind of information. Instead of trying to
Hmm.
look in a book or look in a whatever. Here you get to have
Oh
a
yeah,
Yeah.
let's
discussion
try
with
and
somebody.
Google up the bison. What happens if I go
No, but
here?
Yeah.
You
oh,
know,
no, but it's
but
true. But
you know what I mean?
yeah.
But
a guide adds not only a narrative and
Yes.
education, but it's personal and
Yeah.
he's lived it or she's lived it. So
Right. Right.
it's meaningful. You need guides when you go in
Yes.
the wilderness,
You
especially
do.
if you're not used to it.
Yes,
well,
You
you do.
need
well,
it.
I love
And
it. That this
it
so
will
this is
safeguard you and make your experience better
Yeah.
in
so
all ways.
this came. This is like this was curated through Four Seasons Resort, right? That you stayed at in the Teton
Yeah,
Village.
you can they will arrange, and I mean everything that you want to do,
Mm,
from hiking and mountain biking and all the different kinds of activities,
Cool.
fishing, and they'll arrange this. Of course, if you are not staying at the Four Seasons and you're staying at another property, you can also always contact Jackson, the
Mm,
safari company itself, and join one of their
yeah.
tours. So
Well,
yeah.
uh, that that's
I
that's an important thing to point out. You don't need to be staying at the resort to be able to
Yeah.
access this guide service. So
but also the Four Seasons, like, excuse us, Anthony Bourdain country. Like he's like, I always stay at the Four Seasons. Um, the Four Seasons, like Lottie Da. So what was luxury like out in the wilderness? Like honestly.
I've actually never stayed at a Four Seasons before. So it was very interesting to stay at two different properties that were two very
Mm,
different properties during my stay, both of
I
which
like
I
that.
really
Mm,
enjoyed. But the
cool.
Four Seasons, the experience is definitely an incredible personalized. Uh, Experience that starts before
Mm,
you've even gotten there. The personal attention that you get is very notable. The concierge reaches out, they contact you before, they set up what you want to do, they give you recommendations, and then when you arrive, that same contact continues throughout
mm,
your stay. The property is beautiful. It's mountain style. It's earth tones, wood, Native American motifs. It's beautiful,
cool.
spacious rooms. It's balconies with views. It's
Wow.
it is a wonderful, amenity-rich property with a lot of things, like a beautiful, wonderful full-service spa that I
Oh
definitely
my.
took advantage of. Swimming pool, hot tubs, fitness room, several
Jeez.
Mm,
restaurants, and it's just
Fire
there's a
monkey
kids
got
club
like she
there.
went out hiking. She got like a safari that you only think the word
mm-hmm.
safari Africa, right? And
And I
that
got very, very delicious food everywhere I went,
oh,
and so, it was a wonderful, wonderful treat, a wonderful experience. And
Awesome.
I encourage people who are interested in that type of well curated, wonderful,
Mm,
exclusively deluxe experience to stay there. Once again, you are staying at the Four Seasons, which is in a different area as opposed to the first area that I was in, which is basically in the town of Jackson. This was definitely within what's called the Teton Village, which is very accessible to town as well, and everything, and the park as well. But it's its own separate area, and you'll find several hotels, you'll find condos and lodges and restaurants and all sorts of things there too. But it's two different locations and two different
mm,
styles of properties. The other one that I stayed in was the Snow King, which is very family friendly. It's the Snow King Resort, and it's at the base of what's called Snow King Mountain. And that is a wonderful resort as well. It's less than a mile from the town square, so it's convenient to shops and restaurants. It's also a wonderful Western-style lodging experience. It also has its own full-service spa and, pool and fitness center. You also have right nearby, which is the Snow King Mountain and all of its wonderful activities. And that's a fun place to go for families or for anybody, because they have, the gondola ride you can do, that fun cowboy coaster, which I had a great time doing. There's zip lining, all sorts of things. So it's a very convenient, accessible, walkable property with great staff as well.
I love that you have these different lodging experiences, because, and also that the nature, hiking experiences. Well, I'm still loving the word safari being used, because when you think of safari for Africa, right? And so I think that more guides need to use that word to understand.
It's a great word. It's a great word.
It's exciting.
Its implications are its implications are wonderful, because you think of a safari and you think of seeing animals, and that's exactly what you're doing. You're having a guided experience to see wildlife in their own area,
habitat.
Yeah. And then here you are with these lodging experiences in the the antler arch, in the city, like
I
the
love
town,
that.
Jacksonville. Yeah. And they light it up. And I want people to know these are antlers that have been like naturally dropped off from the animal.
Yes.
It's not like someone hunted them and put a trophy up. It's not, it's different.
No. It's not like
but it, to me, going there and having these lodging experiences also is a huge part of like what we do on the tour. Is like, you do not need to be an athlete to go to these iconic parks, or any park actually for that matter. There's some that are a little like, you're going to have to hike. And if you can't, then there's other parks,
of course.
But
that doesn't,
and we're going to be launching a whole bunch of that about accessibility in parks and things like that. But Grand Tetons, and you can go out into nature and then come back, get dressed up and have a fabulous meal and be like 5-star, like, here we are. You know what I mean? And I think that's where we don't realize that. People think you have to be eating apples and granola on a trail for the rest of your life if you go to a park.
And not only that, I do want to point out that there are hikes for everyone and every ability and every desire and inclination to go as short as you want or as long as you want, in terms of distance, in terms of the type or level of physical activity that you wish in any national park. And there, the national park, leaflets that they give out when you go into the park entrance. If you go to the visitor center, you can find what's called easy, moderate, and more challenging hikes, and you can choose. And also, do you want to go to a waterfall? Do you want to go to a lake? Do you want to scale a mountain? What is it that you want to be in the valley? What do you want to do? The Tetons is a wonderful park for the diversity of landscape that there is, because there are these incredible rivers and incredible waterfalls and lakes galore, and mountains, of course, and every possible landscape that you can think of is there, and you can do whatever you want, as much as you want. There's also, what I want to point out is there's a scenic drives that you can do. So for people who would like to see more and just go on to get in their car and get their map right and go through a scenic drive. And as you mentioned, you can see these very interesting historical sites, which are I think are fascinating for people who are interested in the history of the park. And so there's cabins, there's very old dwellings that are there. There was this chapel that was there that was built back in the 1925s, so the settlers wouldn't have to travel to town to go to church.
You got to think about the people that settled there, man, in these cabins back in the day. Dry farming, ranching. The history is crazy, because you had the Native American Wars. And here it is, like, you are out in the middle of frigging nowhere, and there is wildlife. Like, where the bears exist.
You can just sit in one place for 20 minutes and see more than what you would expect. You will
No,
see
you
more
know, that's a
you
good
will
point.
see more
Yes.
wildlife than
Yes.
when you're walking and scaring it away sometimes. So
It's
I
just
like
you can
it,
be quiet. Yeah.
yeah, if you're quiet and
Yeah.
you just watching, you will
Right.
see more than what you would expect
Right.
Right,
because the
Nancy, that's a
animals,
good point because
it
I
is
remember
because they're curious.
When we went to Chimney Rock out in North
Yeah,
Carolina.
look at
We were with
that.
a park ranger and our friends
Mm,
from the Line and the Rose Bed and Breakfast, and we were
mm,
doing this. It's a state park in outside of Asheville. It's amazing geology,
mm.
and we were going to Hickory Falls, and it was beautiful. We saw all these like fluorescent orange fungus and all.
Yeah.
Anyway, it
Yeah.
was magic.
Yeah.
You've hiked the
Yeah.
Appalachian area and all that,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
magic. And we get to the falls and we do this
Mhm,
whole hike in, and right at the end of the falls was this like
mhm.
steep thing that Nancy's knee was saying, I'm not doing it because her knee was like, no, not doing it now.
Not doing
And
it.
so she didn't. But she sat in this whole other area and she saw hummingbirds. She saw all these. We come down, we saw all these water
Mhm.
snakes, two different water snakes, all
Yeah, it's
huddled
cool.
together in one area in the sun,
It
which was
was
super
way
cool.
cool.
And the
Yeah.
waterfall was a little lower at that time, but I mean, it was cool.
Yeah.
We come back,
It's
we're like, we saw snakes. And she's like, whoa, I saw this, I saw that. And that's because she just sat
Yeah,
quietly
yeah.
I just
in one
Yeah.
sat.
spot and away from people. And she's
Hmm.
like, I'm in my own zone, man. And
Yeah.
she had seen all these other things. And here we are at the
Hmm.
main attraction, but
Yeah.
she had seen all this other life
More.
force that we missed.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's something for everyone
Yes, there
according
is.
to your ability.
And
Hmm.
also I need to point out, the Tetons is a vast amount of land. It's a
I was
large
so,
national park,
and
and there are
it's
different
beautiful.
parts of the park, and you can stay in
Hmm.
different parts of the park. I stayed in the more southern area of the park, but there
Hmm.
is a whole other area up in the
Yeah.
northern area. There is,
Hmm.
there's the Coulter Bay, Jackson Lake, Signal Mountain areas that there are national park lodges that you can stay in up there and explore that area as well. So people can stay. You can stay in one place and then explore, or you can stay in a couple places and explore. Whatever suits your preference, your budget, your time, whatever that might be. Also, the Tetons is a wonderful, of course, add-on or standalone park. A lot of people combine it with Yellowstone because you can drive
Yeah.
directly through.
Hmm.
So that's a very popular thing for people to do.
Mm.
I've done it both ways, and it's great if you're up there and you're only up there for a certain amount of time and you want to see both, then you can see both.
It's
It's
amazing.
something that people can do. I personally loved spending my time focused on the Tetons, and I've been to Yellowstone just focused on Yellowstone, and I like that as well. It really is a kind of an all-encompassing type of experience.
Well, I want to
Yeah,
ask you too because
Yellow's. Mm.
go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, I was going to say Yellowstone in the summer could be a little bit daunting because of the
Yes.
traffic.
Yeah, well, that's where I was
Yeah.
going. Like,
Mm.
what is
Yeah,
the
but
fall like
it,
in
but
regards to visit either of these
fall.
parks?
I think
Uh,
fall is going to be, less
uh,
people and definitely less families because of the school starting. So it's you see a lot less families than you would in the summer. I think it's
yeah.
definitely a less populated time, although it's still popular for people to come, like I said, for the fall
Mhm.
colors. But it's a lot less than summer. I personally I preferred it over the summer, and
Mhm.
if and when I go back, I
I
would love to go back
agree.
in the fall again. It
Yeah.
just like I said,
Mhm.
there was just something so very special about that season there.
Mm.
I agree.
And you can get
Because
snow too.
summer is can be really crowded,
Yeah, it
and
can, it
yeah,
can,
it
and
it can be.
yep,
Yeah,
So
well,
there's
like
it's.
Mount Rainier was like that for us too. We went on
yeah,
Mhm.
Labor Day weekend, which was like, well, it was the
Whoa.
only time we could
right,
with
Mhm.
what we were doing, and we got in the park super early, and we got up
Mhm.
into this Paradise Valley and Nisqually Valley. It was beautiful, but because of the way we traveled in, and it was because we were between conferences with the radio show, plant
yeah,
conferences, plant
yeah,
expos, by the way. Yes. We were driving out of Portland super early out,
Yeah.
we get to Mount Rainier, then we can go do this conference.
Right.
We didn't even think about food. And so we're in there, we're in all these flowers, we're seeing deer. And Nancy and I look at each other like we've been on the road since like 3, 4 in the morning. We've had one cup of coffee, no food. We have nothing. This is before we were on the road full time. Now we're souped up now. If it,
Now we're
so
better
long as
at
it
it.
doesn't fall out of our back section out of our car, like, Lisa's
Yes.
managed to let it be open. But, close your doors. Don't, don't let things fall out. But, it happens when you're on the road full time. Stuff happens. But, we didn't have food. And so we're like, oh, well, let's just go zip out of the park. Oh, yeah. Well, the zip out of the park took 2 hours. And
Yeah.
then the
Yeah.
line to get back
Yeah.
in was 2, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But we went to Mowich Lake. We found this whole other section of the park.
Mhm.
And so parks like that, like you're saying, that are so big, you do want to stay in the different sections so it's not such a huge drive to get to where you want to go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Unless it is that you've been to this park many times and you'd like to stay in one section because you really want to spend time there. It's
Yeah.
just, people have to, everyone's got the constraints as to time and budget and resources and preferences.
Mm-hmm.
But these large parks do have separate areas, and each area is unique and distinct in terms
Mm-hmm.
of what it offers. So I encourage people, and in the winter, this is also a wonderful park in the winter. People love, the skiing is incredible in
Mm-hmm.
the Tetons, and you can go snowshoeing, you can go on horse sleigh rides, you can there's so much to
Well,
do in the winter as well.
Snow King apparently is ready for it.
Yes,
I,
absolutely, and
I
it's
want to go
just
putt-putt golfing.
yeah, of course you can go putt and that coaster, that cowboy coaster was, boy, it was so much fun. It's one of those things where if you don't want to go real fast, you can control your speed, but then it's like you're up there and you're like, oh my God, this is just so much fun. It was like
Okay.
it was just great. It was just a fun thing to do, for families and for adults, for kids of all
Mm-hmm.
ages. It's just
Awesome.
it was wonderful. I truly appreciate when there's activities like that for all ages.
Well, I think
Yeah.
what we are finding just in as we travel as us, and the way we travel is weird, but it is digital nomad, and that's a whole style of travel, right? And then
Correct.
as we pet sit, we're pet sitting for people that are traveling. So
Yes.
we get to hang out with them and find out where they're going. And half the time I send them your articles. Hey, you're going here? Debbie went there. By the way, that's true. Here's some articles, and they
Mm-hmm.
use them. And some of our articles and other writers, I'm like, here, and then we start to hear how people travel and
Right.
what they want. We work with travel agents too with some of the stuff we do on the shows. And then we also, played innkeepers for a while. So it's kind of interesting for us to be on all sides of the travel spectrum and
You
also help
bet it.
people physically get out there on the road.
Sure.
And
Sure.
what we're finding out is experience is key,
Mm-hmm.
100%. So that's where the safari thing comes in. And actually staying in, you could rough it out for a while and then go, like, I know a couple that actually did go where you were, and they car camped in the park. And then she always says, I need my hotel. Excuse me.
Well, you get to that point where you need a bath or a
Sure.
shower. You get to
Sure.
that point where you need to have a bed.
She wants her fancy meal,
Yeah. Oh,
and she
well,
wants to be able to
okay.
blow dry her hair and be a girl again.
Mm-hmm.
So she says to
Yeah,
her husband,
the
that's it.
the thing I
That's
think
it.
the thing is that there's all sorts of accommodations, and at this park there's everything from small inns and
Yeah.
camping and rustic lodges to family friendly resorts to the top of the line Four Seasons, and so
Exactly. And
you've got lots of
multi-generational.
choice. Yeah,
That
you've
was
got
the other
lots and
point.
lots of choice.
That's the
Yeah.
other point. So everybody has their experiences. Like the couple we know, that's their husband and wife team that car camp, like literally have a tent on the top of their car. But then she's like, we're going to do that for 2, 3 days, do the wildlife thing you want to do, which I love
and
too,
she
but
wants a
I want to be
hotel.
a girl and I want my fancy dinner too.
Yep.
And so that's what they do.
That's
But
fair.
multi-generational.
You can have it all.
That's right.
The show notes for Debbie's article that also gives you links to the park, nps.gov/GRTE. They always take the first letters of the park for the, /forward. But if you go to nps.gov, you'll find the Grand Tetons there. Also for the resort, snowking.com. For the Four Seasons, go to Four Seasons, four spelled out, fourseasons.com/Jackson Hole. Check that out. But oh my gosh, I can't let you go yet. Sorry. Because the art, I need to go to the Wildlife Art Museum. This is a big deal. I just realized we'd almost skipped over that. It's my fault. National Museum of Wildlife Art. So is this part of a national wildlife refuge? Or is it
No,
separate?
it's overlooking. It's on a hillside overlooking the National Elk Refuge. So it's about 2 miles from the park entrance. It has several thousand artworks that represent wild animals from around the world. It cool. there are paintings, there are sculptures, from Audubon, Andy Warhol, O'Keeffe, depicting and showcasing wildlife art from, umpteen years ago to the present. And outside is a wonderful outdoor sculpture trail where you see these incredible larger-than-life sculptures and great views of that valley and the surrounding area. But it is a remarkable museum, and I highly advise people going there, just stopping in. Especially, it's a great idea. Say you have a day that maybe it's raining and you don't feel like hiking in the rain. So, this is a wonderful museum to pop into.
Oh, I love that. And Nancy, you've got to go. That's Nancy is a wildlife
that.
artist. That's her thing,
Yes,
You need to go. So we need to go. Okay. All right. And
Good.
Georgia O'Keeffe is in there?
Yeah.
And Andy
definitely.
Warhol.
Yeah.
What's Andy Warhol doing in there?
You have to go to find out.
I know, because I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. You got it. Everybody, keep up with Debbie. She's on the show every fourth Tuesday. And you can go to bigblendradio.com for that. But also, again, her article is up on nationalparktraveling.com. All the links are in the show notes. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Fire Monkey. We can't wait for New York. Did you melt the snow is what we want to know.
Nice talking to you. Till next time.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Big Blend Radio's Global Adventures Show with travel writer Debbie Stone. Debbie is here every fourth Tuesday. You can keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.